Jason, Tim, Hoops Tonight, congrats, 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. How are things, man?
Good, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, the NBA got a little stagnant there for a little bit last year at the beginning of this year. I think all the teams were a little too steady. I think everyone was kind of too familiar with what every team could do, and things felt a little inevitable. And we had that big shakeup. League interest has been great. It's been really fun, man. I'm just hoping that we get a strong conference final and NBA final because we had really, really weak third and fourth rounds in the last couple of years. So I'm just hoping we get something better this year.
Some people think the shakeup was the script. They talk about the script.
Man, like when I hear people say stuff like that about the Luka Doncic trade, like it's one of the rare examples where some of the conspiracy theorists actually make more sense than the actual reasoning that's been laid out. And Nico Harrison's not doing himself any favors there. So I don't blame the conspiracy machine for attacking that one.
All right, so I'm based in New York, so we have to talk Knicks. Is the Knicks offense to Brunson dominant?
It is, but I think that some of it is like, I don't want to blame it all on Brunson. There is something to be said about the way that confidence can dictate the way the ball goes in a game, Like I even noticed this, like when you happen to go play pickup and you're playing with particularly high-level players. And let's say you have three of them on the court, and all three of you are capable of, running the show, so to speak. You're going to kind of naturally drift towards the ball being in the hands of the guy that has it going that day, the guy that is most confident, the guy that's in the best rhythm. You can kind of feel it out in the first, few possessions, and it's like, oh, this guy's got it going. He's got the best matchup. We're going to play through him. And I think, like, just some of the struggles from Mikal and OG have led to this. Like, OG in game 2 just started the game missing 2 completely unguarded left corner threes. You know what I mean? Mikal Bridges at the end of the game missing those 2 very clean looks along the right wing and along the top of the key, right? And like, I think they're just struggling. And I think that that's leading to some of it. Karl-Anthony Towns had 7 ISOs in game 1. He had 0 in game 2. With the Tobias Harris matchup, I think that's something they could look to explore attacking more. And really it's just about not falling into the trap of realizing that Brunson obviously is your best player, obviously has the best opportunity to create offense. But if you run into the trap of playing a heliocentric contest with him and Cade, you play away from the strength of your roster, which is that with Cade, he's got Dennis and Malik can hoop and Tim Hardaway can hoop, but they don't have the shot creation talent that the Knicks have. The depth is their advantage, and they need to lean into that as much as they can over the course of the rest of the series.
Is there anything Tibbs could do schematically here? I know I've heard you say that the Knicks players just have to play better, but is there anything Tibbs could do?
So I think early in the game, the Lakers did a little bit of this in game 2 against Minnesota, where they just went out of their way to drop plays to highlight Austin and LeBron earlier in the game. You could try to essentially force the rhythm building process. So like an example would be, set like when Dennis Schroeder's on the floor, start looking to get Dennis off of Brunson for the purpose of attacking him with a OG, for instance. Like OG's scoring pop was like the story of the tail end of the season. He's getting these like massive Kawhi.
But that kind of coincides with no Brunson there, right?
No, for sure it does,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean the ability's not there, right?
100%.
So the point is like I'm not worried about Brunson's rhythm, Like I mean, I even as I look through these games, like Brunson seems to always just figure it out down the stretch, and he can get into those sequences. And like for the record, I thought Brunson's shot creation down the stretch was nearly perfect. That's not the solution. Isn't take the ball out of Brunson's hands when the game's on the line.
It's crazy how often he proves how clutch he is.
Yeah, and like that drop off he had to Josh Hart after manipulating Duren up. He was the one who set up Mikal Bridges with that perfect catch and shoot look that could have tied the game at the top of the key. He was getting to his spots in the mid range. The answer is not take the ball out of Brunson's hands at the end of games. The answer is throughout the rest of the meat and potatoes of the game, make a more concerted effort to build rhythm. And it's about an investment. Like you're a good enough team to be able to sacrifice some Brunson possessions early in the game to try to build rhythm for these guys. Like, you have the talent. You're not I think especially as you look at the tail end of each of the first two games of the series, the Knicks have a clear experience and execution advantage, and it shows at the end of these games. That's why they keep creeping up right at the end. And I do believe that the Knicks have the ability to withstand a lot of what Detroit does just by hanging on till the end of the game. Because at the end of the game, that's when Detroit's execution starts to nosedive a little bit. And there's a clear, OG Anunoby's defensive effort against Cade is wearing him down towards the end of the games. He looked exhausted at the end of game 2 and was leaning entirely on Dennis. And so, honestly, to me, you can capitalize on that even more by looking to build rhythm throughout the game for your other shot creators, so that you're looking at a fourth quarter where Cade's exhausted and you have 3 dudes in rhythm or 2 dudes in rhythm that you can go to run action.
I have a friend that he works with an NBA team, and I told him, Cat is not proven in the biggest moments, right? And he said, no, he is proven in the biggest moments. It's that he doesn't come up big. Is that a fair thing, or is that not that fair?
I think it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's completely reasonable to look at the flow of that game and realize that the Knicks ball handlers kind of froze Cat out. I think that that's true. But you and I both know that there is an attitude that you can have when you want the damn basketball. And it is an energy, fighting for position and creating a clear passing angle and screaming for the ball.
So you don't think Cat has enough of that?
I think that Cat having the success that he did in game 1 and then not ISOing a single time in game 2 is a problem.
And who does that fall the most on?
Like I said, it's both. It's on the ball handlers for not working to try to keep Cat in rhythm, and that is on Brunson. Brunson's got to understand that he will be better off throughout the course of games if he, as the point guard, manages the rhythm of his co-stars as best as he can. But to your point, one of the things that's frustrating with Cat is he can disappear at times, and the way it manifests is he just goes, oh, I'm not in the offense right now, so I'm just going to go spot up, or I'm going to set these screens, and he just kind of disappears into stretch big. And it's not that you don't want that role. He should fill that role every time he's not looking to be aggressive. But he also has to look to be aggressive because he is the guy that has that experience. He made a conference finals run last year. He is the guy that is capable of punishing some of these smaller Pistons wings.
So you have the Knicks winning. I have the Knicks winning. And how much of that is just them having the best roster? I believe the Pistons have the best player, but I also think, yes, I do think the Pistons have the best player, but the Knicks clearly, 2 through 5, 2 through 6, have the better players. I mean, we could break down basketball all we want, but is that inevitably why the Knicks will win this series?
Yeah, I think NBA history tells us that young teams like Detroit don't win series like this. For the record, for the exact reason why things have gone the way they did in the last 2 games. Cade, struggling to manage his energy, running out of gas towards the end of the game while he's shooting these crazy, transition pushes and body bumping and just torching people throughout the game, but then clearly not having the gas to create shots late. Game 1, there's this sequence where Brunson is hunting Tobias Harris to get favorable matchups and doing damage there, but then on the other end of the floor, Cade's trying to post up OG Anunoby, his primary defender, without even attempting to get him off. And it's that's the difference. It's Jalen Brunson, this is his 4th consecutive playoff run. He went, 3 rounds with Dallas, 2 rounds with the Knicks, 2 rounds with the Knicks. This is 9th playoff series in the last 4 seasons, right? This is Cade's first opportunity to do this type of work. It's obviously something that he's adjusting to. And so I think the Pistons have clear advantages. I actually think Cade has kind of gone blow for blow with Brunson this series as a primary shot creator. I just think there's more solutions over the course of the series. I had a mailbag question in my pod a couple nights ago, and the way I pitched it back at my listeners was who do you think is more likely to get going offensively over the tail end of this series? Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr., or OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges? And I just think it's going to be OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. They're better basketball players. The intensity and the urgency. You don't think the Knicks are going to feel the urgency? They've been in a lot of big late series moments. They will continue to feel the moment and be prepared for the moment while this series progresses.
Jason, we've both had our injuries. and we have to shift to Kawhi Leonard because this is really fluky, Jason. I mean, to take that much time off, to have that many injuries, and to look like the best player in basketball is really ridiculous, Jason.
I think it's such I loved, I said this on my show a couple weeks ago. I was like, you can just tell it's because he loves basketball. Like, and that's why he keeps coming back. And then finally someone asked him about it in a presser, and he's like, it's because I love the game, and I just want to keep coming back and play. And I respect the hell out of him for that, because it's like, you can imagine how discouraging it would be and how easy it would be to just be like, I'm done. I've got all the money in the world. I don't actually need to do any of this. I have 2 finals MVPs. My resume is more or less what it's going to be anyway. Like, I'm not going to catch anybody in all-time accolades, but at the same time, like, my ceiling is as high as the greatest players in my era. So, like, that people have this, like, level of respect for me. He didn't need to come back the way that he did, but he just loves hooping, Combo. He loves hooping, and he wanted to get back out there. And, what was crazy, too, is, like, if you go back to, really right around the time that they had that back-to-back set with the Lakers, where the Lakers beat him twice, he didn't look great physically in that 2-game set. He looked a little better in the second game, but he didn't look great physically. And honestly, they just played their cards right, and he seems to be peaking physically at the right time. And really, it's about, like, I think he looks more or less as good, as explosive as he's looked at any point in the last 5 years. And, maybe in that Utah Jazz series before he got hurt, he was a little more poppy, but I feel like he's getting just as much lift and separation as ever. I mean, some of those shots he hit over Aaron Gordon were crazy. And so, I think he looks fantastic. And I just think it's a testament to how love of the game kind of can push you to do whatever it is that you need to do.
And I feel like the role players are a little underrated at this point with Bogey and DJJ. Did you see the Clippers reaching this level when Paul George was out of there and we didn't really know what was going on with Kawhi?
This has been a team that I've been right about all year. And I'm not trying to brag, because I've had teams that I've been wrong about all year too. So you know how that goes.
You got to do the combo. When you're right, you bring it back up. When you're wrong, you just let it slide, Jason. All right?
So I said right before the season, I was like, I think the Clippers are going to be a really good regular season team that hovers around the 4 or 5 seed. And I said it was because I really liked the Chris Dunn, Derek Jones Jr. signings. And I have this, like, I feel like there is, I feel like when it comes to the ultimate highest levels of basketball, you need these supremely gifted players like a Kawhi, like a Jokic, like a Giannis. Like, we can talk that to death. But there is a basic floor you can establish as a basketball team if you check certain boxes. So, like, if you have a guy who can create shots for your team consistently night to night in the NBA regular season, that's James Harden. If you have, with that guy, a reliable 2-man game partner, that's Ivica Zubac. As a guy who's a really good short roll scorer, a guy who can do damage against switches on the backside.
Maybe top 3 or 4 big in the league.
Yeah, he's certainly no worse than the 6th best center in basketball, probably the 5th.
Yeah,
and it's a debate. You could argue, like, who's better, Zoo or Bam, is a much more interesting conversation now than it was a couple years ago. You know what I mean? I'd be curious, because Bam just has so much more responsibility, so it's a little more complicated. But you get the point. So I have my shot creator, I have my 2-man game partner with him, and we can also just account for Zoo as just a really talented player. But then I also have perimeter athletes. I've got guys that can fly around on the perimeter, guard the other team's best perimeter shot creator. And Zoo is an underrated rim protector who actually defends pretty well in switches too. So they have scheme versatility, and they've got that baseline shot creation piece from Harden and all of this defensive talent. That is just high floor in the NBA regular season, especially when you're well coached, the way that the Clippers are with Ty Lue. So Kawhi Leonard effectively represented the ceiling raising piece. And then a couple things went their way. Like, Zoo took a leap, and suddenly he became this guy that could go for 22 and 15 on any given night. And then Norman Powell took a leap and became this really gifted shot creator, knowing he was going to need to be depended on more with Kawhi Leonard missing a bunch of time in the regular season. And so I had a feeling they'd be a very good regular season team. But honestly, the development of Zoo, the development of Powell, Kawhi getting back to his ceiling, that is what actually elevated this group to championship contention.
What would a championship mean for James Harden? If you think about it, let's say Cavs somehow come out the East, right? I don't know how they would guard a player like James Harden. I think he would get off. He wins a championship. He wins a finals MVP. I mean, that could be more of a legacy raiser than even like Dirk's title, if you think about it, or right up there with it, at least.
I actually think James Harden winning a title on this team would be not quite the same as like Dwight Howard with the Lakers, but kind of like a similar vibe in terms of the way it can revamp a guy's like persona. So for starter, and for the record, James Harden's doing a lot more for this team than Dwight did for the Lakers. So I'm not trying to undersell
like
that.
he's almost still on prime impact.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I don't think he's close to the MVP player that he was, but like
He's not the scorer and he's not as athletic, but he's doing a better job of game managing and getting everybody in place. Yeah.
He's smooth right around the 25th best player in the league, which is like really a really good spot for him to be in at this phase in his career. And honestly, if you looked at where he was like the last year in Philly in the playoffs, where he had those two big games, but then he looked so bad in the other games. But the key is that Philly team depended on him so much. This team just doesn't necessarily need him to be such a heavy lifter on offense, with Kawhi being healthy, with Norman Powell being able to run action, with Zoo being like a post-up option. But my point in bringing up Dwight is like Dwight had this reputation for being unserious. Like there was like all sorts of stories about him in locker rooms and just like not being a dude who was like really all that locked into the goal. And all of a sudden he just embraced this role on the Lakers and legitimately was very important for them winning a championship. And now it doesn't cause us to reevaluate Dwight as the best player on his team, but it does cause us to look back on Dwight as like over the course of his career, he finally learned like this is where your opportunities are. And like, what I would give James Harden credit for is, I think you just put it perfectly, Combo. He's become a better game manager in the later part of his career. He's become a guy that like will ISO when the matchup calls for it, will spam a ball screen when the matchup calls for it, but he's much better at like picking his spots, which allows him to be more efficient. It allows it. He's more willing to take the mid-range shot. He's been deadly with the floater. The floater has been a huge move for him in this series as he continues to get downhill and stop before he gets to the rim. And so he's a little more polished in the mid-range, a little more balanced in his attack, a little bit better with his floor management or overall floor like presence on the in terms of managing as a point guard. And so as a result, like he's been, I think, like a higher floor player. Maybe a lower ceiling player. Like he's not hitting the ceiling that he did with the Rockets, obviously, but he does have that higher floor, which has made him more dependable night to night, which is like exactly what this team needs. And so in a weird way, I think if James Harden won the title as, call him the second or third best player on this Clippers team, I think it would just resonate with the fans as like James Harden became more of a winner towards the tail end of his career. Because in Houston, it was a lot of like he's putting up numbers, but like he gets into the postseason and he's relying too much on these step back threes. They're not falling at a high enough clip. It's not resonating with team success in the postseason the way that it could. I feel like this would resonate more with basketball fans and change his reputation retroactively.
It's also the fashion in which he gets it done. Like if he wins a finals MVP or something, that'd be kind of crazy.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But
against a team like the Cavs, like Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell could actually be a great defender if he wanted to be, but that backcourt is not that dynamic in terms of defense. I mean, I feel like he could really get off on a team like that.
So he could, but I want a couple things. This Denver defense is really bad. Okay, they've been playing better in this series, but they're not a very good defense, and they are not necessarily equipped to be able to handle him. Even Christian Brown has just like really struggled with basic like driving angle stuff with James, like open stances, not being prepared for his first step. Like he's caught Christian Brown quite a bit. As he gets into later rounds in this series, like OKC, for instance, if he faces them in the second round, if he faces like a Golden State in the conference finals, a Boston in the NBA finals, like I don't see James Harden having a really impressive statistical series in those moments. But if he just creates a bunch of quality shots, let's say he averages around 17 points on 15 shots per game and 9 assists per game without turning the basketball over too much, that could still be a monumentally important job for that team, even if it's not manifesting in him putting up massive totals. I don't think he's going to put up massive totals as the defensive intensity picks up in later rounds if they advance.
What's crazy about Kawhi is that I think more than anybody else, he could get a bucket when the defense is absolutely set.
I was talking about this on my show last night. You get into the postseason, even like the best ball handlers will find a way to, defenses will find a way to contain to some extent. Did you notice how towards the end of the game in Lakers Wolves game 2, like Rui Hachimura started to kind of just pick up on where Ant was going to his spots and he was beating him to spots and stuff. Similarly, in that fourth quarter run last night, Darius Garland was having a hard time like creating dribble penetration. And so the Heat work their way back as they get hot from 3. And Darius misses a couple shots and struggles to create some shots. And suddenly Donovan Mitchell just comes in and goes, okay, well, you can play perfect defense on me. I'm going to hit this crazy right-hand floater off of 2 feet drifting to my left. I'm going to hit this crazy left shoulder fadeaway over Tyler Herro that he hit 2 insane threes during that stretch down the stretch. And so Donovan Mitchell's ability to just hit shots that the defense can literally do nothing about lifted the Cavs out of the mud and helped them close out that game. Similarly with Kawhi, those 2 last jump shots he hits against Aaron Gordon, I mean, he was hitting jumpers all night, but it's like Aaron Gordon defended that right shoulder fade as well as you could possibly defend the right shoulder fade, and he just knocked it down. The off the dribble jump shot he hit attacking from that right slot, he just hit that hard dribble move and then just elevated, perfectly defended. And that's the key, is like that to me is like the ceiling raising piece in the playoffs that can push a team to being truly unguardable. Like even when Denver won the title in 2022, like it was a lot of possessions where teams really did defend Jokic and Murray very well, but Jokic and Murray just made every damn over the top shot that they could get off, and it like just kind of made them unguardable in that way. And so Kawhi brings that ceiling raising piece to where you're in these late game sequences, no one can get open, nothing's working. Who can create a shot? This guy can.
Do the Rockets have that guy? We saw 30 from Jalen Green. We're seeing KD linked to this team. Do they need a guy, or do you think they have that guy somewhere within the organization? Because they got 2 really good guys on the bench that don't even get playing time in Cam Whitmore and Reed Shepherd, in my opinion. I don't know what they'll turn into, but I think they both could be really good players. Do they have a guy? Do they have enough to take like that individual guy that just gets it done? We talked about it with Kawhi. You talked about it with Donovan to win a championship.
So I think it kind of reminds me of the Warriors, where the Warriors looked like this like 500 team until they get Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler didn't necessarily come in and play much better statistically than he had been in Miami. I mean, he was just kind of just coming in and basically being Andre Iguodala for them. But that team was so completely and utterly devoid of like a reliable secondary star that Jimmy Butler slotted into that spot and like everyone got better and just everything worked. Similarly with Houston, they don't lose when they have a scorer that gets off. They just don't lose. Like Jalen Green goes for 38 last night. They're 14-1 this season when he scores at least 30 points. They win every single time.
Because the defense and rebounding is already so good.
Exactly. They're dominating the possession battle, and they're dragging everybody down into the mud every single night. They just can't score. And so, you know, Jalen Green is that type of guy in the sense that you kind of just have to cross your fingers and hope he misses. And what I mean by that is he's your textbook downhill athlete that's a pretty solid pull-up three-point shooter. He's just streaky. Like, he can go through stretches as a pull-up three-point shooter where he can't make anything.
He's very Zach LaVine-ish.
Yeah, he's very Zach LaVine-ish. That's actually a good comp. So, like, last night's a good example. He gets that pull-up jump shot going. Suddenly you're in this give and take with him where it's like you got to kind of play up on the shot or take away the drive. You can't really do both. And then he becomes unguardable. And, dude, like, there were, like, in those games that I referred to last night, or just a minute ago, where he went 14-1 this year when he scored over 30. He did it against elite defenses. Did it against Minnesota. He did it against Oklahoma City. That Lakers team was a very good defense at the time. The Clippers are a very good defense. Now it happens with the Golden State Warriors. They were the number 1 defense in the NBA over the course of the stretch after the All-Star break. And so, like, Jalen does have this thing where it's like if his pull-up jump shot's going, he kind of is unguardable, and you just sit there and hope he misses, and sometimes he hits them all and they win. And so as a proof of concept, you can imagine a situation where you flip, you know, a bunch of draft picks and find a way to match salary. I don't know if it ends up being Jalen Green and then including guys like Cam Whitmore and Reed Shepherd and, stuff like that. And maybe a Jabari Smith Jr. because he plays more or less the same position as KD. But then you slot KD in at the 4 next to Şengün. It infinitely makes your primary defensive look better because of the fact that he can be a legitimate rim protector. There's no rim protector on this Houston team. KD is a rim protector. He can legitimately be a rim protector. So you can imagine the ability to deploy Şengün up at the level of screens, but having KD behind him. And then on the other end of the floor, KD's going to get 30 a lot of times. And the big one is the nights where he doesn't get 30. Like, this is the key. Like, if you look at Jalen Green, it's a lot of feast or famine type of stuff. You look at game 1, he's brutally bad. He has these 14 games in the regular season where he has 30-plus points. But he also had, let's see, I have him at 12 games with single digits and 24 games with fewer than 15 points. So that's really the big thing with Jalen Green is it's the feast or famine. With KD, it's like you're going to get 25, 30-point games, but then all the others are going to land right around 25, 26, 27 points. It's going to be a dependable, efficient scoring output every single night. And then as you and I both know, when he was with Brooklyn, especially with the teams when Harden and Kyrie were always hurt, KD is actually like really capable of just creating shots by dribbling off a high pick and roll, and then teams come up to the level and he just drops the ball over the top and generates 4-on-3s over and over and over again, which I think you can imagine Şengün in the middle of the floor operating out of those 4-on-3s. That could be devastating, and the kind of player that's big and strong enough to guard Şengün is going to have a hell of a time dealing with KD on the perimeter if they try to switch.
What's the best landing spot for KD?
I think Houston. KD's got to learn that he can't surround himself with redundancy anymore. It can't be Harden.
I said that 2 years ago in Vegas. Like, there's just a redundancy and skill set with these three, and I never thought it was going to work.
Exactly. And so on one level, you kind of understand it's like, okay, you're flipping Chris Paul into Bradley Beal.
It's because he's a hooper. He's thinking about like who's he taking to the gym with him, right?
Exactly. And like what I get excited about is you can imagine a scenario where it's, Fred VanVleet, Amen Thompson, Dylan Brooks, Kevin Durant, and Alperen Şengün. Yeah. And it's like you're just surrounded by that's 3 elite perimeter defenders. And like Dylan Brooks has developed as a catch and shoot player. Şengün's ability to invert spacing by operating at the high post allows Amen Thompson to work along the baseline. There's just I think that's the type of team that would just cover for everything the Suns couldn't do for KD and allowing KD to kind of take that primary shot creation piece. And the main thing he's got I think KD's been terrified of this combo ever since he left OKC. I think those last years in OKC when it's Andre Roberson and it's Steven Adams and Russell Westbrook who can't shoot and like I think
PTSD?
Exactly. I think KD was like, I am not playing with dudes who can't score ever again. And so he just started surrounding himself with all this offensive skill. But it's like, the truth be told, like his best chance to win a championship in this league is to surround him with a bunch of MFers that are going to play defense and be physical and drag these games down into the mud because he's one of the best at thriving in those situations on offense.
Warriors and Lakers, their series are both tied 1-1. Everybody loves to overreact, but the series are even now. Out of those two teams, who do you think has a better chance to win the title this year?
So, I think the Warriors have a better chance of advancing out of the first round. Both of those series are very similar in the sense that they are giving up massive physical advantages. Houston's just so much bigger and stronger. I thought the Lakers would hold up better physically against Minnesota than they have. It looks like Minnesota's considerably bigger and stronger. But the difference is the skill gap. The Warriors are so much more skilled than Minnesota or than Houston. Minnesota's a top 10 offense. Ant is the best high volume 3-point shooter in the league right now. Like there's a lot more skill to contend with in Minnesota, even though I do think the Lakers are the more skilled team. So both of those series are manifesting as long as the Lakers and Warriors can hang on to the rope physically, their skill can lift them over the top. And the games have looked similar. Like the game the Lakers won in game 2 was eerily similar to the game the Warriors won in game 1. You know, mid 90s to mid 80s. Kind of towards the end of the game, Houston and Minnesota's athleticism started to wear down the Lakers and Warriors. They started to come back, but the Lakers and Warriors were able to stiff arm them at the end of the game and get out of there with a win. So I do think because Houston's offensive skill isn't there, that Golden State is more likely to advance out of the first round. That said, I do think the Lakers are more likely to win the title, and the main reason why is the specific OKC matchup. I think the Lakers are a really good matchup for OKC because OKC's perimeter defenders are all too small for LeBron and Luka. And we saw that in the 2-game set that they played towards the tail end of the regular season. Just there is a comfortability that they have in that matchup, especially since their bigs aren't as physical as Minnesota's bigs, where Minnesota is able to mitigate that because all their perimeter defenders are a little bit bigger. And Julius Randle, Naz Reid, and Rudy Gobert are doing some real physical damage to their front line. But the specific OKC matchup, I think, favors LA, and I think that makes them a more dangerous title threat. Not to say Golden State can't beat OKC. I just think that's a tougher matchup for them with their ability to just hound Steph for the entire series.
Before we get out of here, who'd you have in the finals? Has anything changed from watching all the film that you watch? And do you have Celtics or the field?
That's a good question. I think I'd go the field. But I do have the Celtics as my favorite. They are the one team that can truly create space for their stars, that has true versatility on offense and the different types of ways that they can attack, but also can hit a defensive ceiling near what we see from these OKC, Minnesota types of teams. The Lakers can't hit that defensive ceiling. The Nuggets can't hit that defensive ceiling. Like, Jalen Brown can be a damaging defender when he wants to be. You know, Jason Tatum is one of the most versatile defenders in the league. Boston's defense hasn't been as consistent this year for obvious reasons. They're older. They're just trying to get through the season. But, like, when I look at OKC, they can't create space for Shea, and they don't have super reliable off-of-Shea shot creation relative to some of the higher-ranked teams. So even though I believe in their defense, I don't believe in their offense as much. I look at Cleveland. I believe in their offense, but I also don't believe in their star talent as much. Like, Donovan Mitchell's really good, but he's not as good as a Shea. He's not as good as a Tatum. And Cleveland's defense has slipped considerably over the tail end of the season. The Lakers can truly space the floor and can truly be versatile in their attack with all their shot creation, and they're a good defense, but they're not nearly as good defensively as Boston can be. So as I look through, Boston to me has the best combination of units. Their offense and defense to me are among all of these teams, the more reliable units. And so I just think that when push comes to shove, they're just more likely to win simply because they have more reliable units and they're experienced. They've got the versatility. They're just, to me, they're the best team in the NBA.
So you have OKC versus Celtics?
I think OKC is more likely to win the West than any other West team, but I would take the field over OKC in the West.
So let's say OKC and Celtics, because I was actually talking about this the other day in the gym. Do you see some of the similarities? You have Chet and Porzingis, right? You have the dynamic duo that each team has, Jalen Williams, SGA, the two J's. Hardenstein's not a spacer like Horford. Both great two-way teams. Do you see a lot of similarities with those two teams? And what's the biggest differences?
There are similarities. The biggest similarity I see is just like their growth process. Like OKC still has games where they don't trust the pass. They were bottom 5 in assist percentage this year. They can get into these situations where they just attack rim protection and force things in the paint, take bad shots. They can get out of whack offensively. We've all seen it. OKC, even though they're an elite offense statistically, they can really ground into the mud in the half court offensively from time to time. That reminds me of the Celtics back in 2022, where it's like, why are you still trying to shoot through Brook Lopez at the rim when there's an easy kick-out read to Al Horford? Like, you got to take the kick-out read. Like, you're just shooting at the rim against Brook Lopez is not an efficient shot. Like, that Celtics team had to struggle in 2022 to beat the Bucks, had to lose in the finals to that Golden State team. They had to take their warts before you get to 2024, where suddenly we see some of the most beautiful drive and kick sequences we've ever seen in the NBA because they've learned their lesson through playoff failure. Even dating to falling down 3-0 to the Heat the year before they won the title, right? Now, obviously, there's new players that came in, but both Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum had improved dramatically as ball handlers and playmakers in that 2024 season. OKC, I think, is going to have a similar development path. They certainly can win the title. I am aware that they're favored in Vegas. I don't think that that's misplaced. I have them second on my list behind Boston as the second most likely team to win the title.
Why do you think Vegas has them favored over the Celtics?
I think Vegas is down on Boston probably because Vegas uses models, is my guess. And obviously this is a basic stat to demonstrate it. Alex Caruso is the only guy in the playoff rotation for OKC that's over the age of 26. Okay? For Boston, Jason Tatum is the only player in the rotation that's 26 or younger. So as a result of that, the Celtics are not bringing the same level of intensity night to night in the regular season. They're older. They just won the title. So what
do these models take history into it too, though? I mean, like a lot of
I'm sure they do to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But like most models, their goal is to remove emotion. Like, let me put it this way. It's not like the Vegas dudes are sitting in the room and they're going like, who do we think's going to win? No. They got their processes. They got some really smart dudes.
Because they got to be speedy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like at the volume that they're taking the speed, actually the point you're making about speed is also super important. But like they got to get really deadly accurate numbers in order for their business model to work. Otherwise, because the thing is there are sharps out there. There are bettors that do use models in order to make these sorts of picks. So the only things that they're factoring in really are these models and then the actual betting public, like where the public is in terms of where they're putting their money. But like I think that the data coming out of this season is going to highly favor a team like OKC that has this super young, energetic team that's crushing everybody. The Vegas odds literally make no sense to me. And here's why. The Celtics are far more likely to get out of the East than the Thunder are to get out of the West. They have substantially easier matchups round to round. I don't think Cleveland can beat them. Cleveland got a couple games against Boston when Boston was sitting starters, and they were like attacking Sam Hauser in the clutch, and the Celtics still damn near won both of those games. So like I think Cleveland's going to end up losing to Boston. OKC is like they could have to beat the Clippers in round 2, then have to beat the Lakers or the Warriors in the conference finals before getting into the NBA Finals series against a team like Boston, who would be more experienced. NBA history tells us the first time you get to the NBA Finals, you play well below your capability anyway. That's what happened to Jason Tatum. That's what happened to Steph Curry. That's what happened to LeBron James. Like all these dudes played poorly in their first NBA Finals. Shea probably would too. Like I just think Boston is the obvious pick, and I honestly don't think Vegas is accounting for that properly in their models. Again, not to say OKC can't win. If OKC wins, we're not going to be surprised. I just would have them as the second favorite, not the favorite. I'd flip those odds.
Jason, great stuff. You're always welcome back on the show. Let them know about all the podcasts you're putting out, because you're putting out a lot of shows, Jason. So let them know where they could find it.
So Hoops Tonight on YouTube. There is a steady dose of live reactions right after the final buzzer of the games, and we're also doing film sessions in the morning. So in the morning, go to the channel about 5 days a week. We won't go as frequent during the playoffs, otherwise I completely decompose from exhaustion. But in the mornings, there will usually be right around this time, right around like 11 a.m. Pacific, you'll find a film session from the previous night's games. But Combo, man, I always love talking hoops with you. I appreciate you having me on, man, and I look forward to next time.
Always welcome back on the show, Jason, and talk soon.